Hey, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Max on Color. And today I'm very blessed because I'm joined by my beloved colleague, Dr. Sassi and Danny. And Danny is going to help me to do the technical host today. So you won't be experiencing like audio technical difficulties and so on just because of me handling this just by myself, right? And Dr. Sassi is also joining us today because he has a special announcement that he wants to announce. And it makes me curious. He already told me that since last night. And, it makes me really curious. Let's see what's it's all about. And unfortunately, Diego cannot make it again today because he is traveling to Madrid. And hopefully, you arrive safe, Diego, and we'll see you soon, right? And before we go into or we talk about what's today's topic, I think you already can guess based from the light setup. But before that, let me just do a small housekeeping, right? Let me share my screen. All right. So if you are curious about what are the events or what are the webinars that we are hosting at Maxon, because we're pretty much having like every day like one webinar from Monday to Friday. You can like literally tune in to Maxon channel, and you'll see that there must be like a lot of webinars going on like for every day. And today we'll have Max on Color, and next Thursday we'll have Ask the Trainer, of course, right? And right after Max on Color, right after this show, you can tune in to the Star Wars May the 4th Zebras event. So if you're into Star Wars and you're into sculpting, be sure that you'll be there. And next week, on Monday, there will be a new series of demystifying post productions. Where I'm sorry, not the new start really, because it's already the second week. It's a new series of demystifying post productions with the topic of compositing. So if you are into compositing and you want to learn more, make sure that you join the Mystifying Post Production next Monday, right? And for you who haven't get any merchandise from us, I think you can get one. Please do so, and you can follow the link that you'll see in your screen, or you can go to the chat. There's a link that we already pasted, like from like earlier today. You can follow that link, and the code for today is compositing 3D. So upon accessing that link, you will see a code word, like how do you call it, a space where you can enter the code. It's a secret website, so to say. So to enter that shop, you need the code, and after you redeem the code, then you'll see that you can get one of this merchandise. And upon checkout, the price will be deduced to zero. So nice, right? And if you're asking me if this webinar is recorded, all of our webinars are recorded. Like every single webinar hosted at Maxon is recorded. And to check the webinars, like the recording, or if you want to follow along, for example, because today we will do a live grade from beginning to the end. And if you want to follow along, I mean, you can just watch in the live show, and then if you want to follow along, you can go and watch the recording, which is will be available in Maxon Training Team. And what's nice about all of this recording, they are timestamped. That's the labor of love from Dr. Sassi. Thank you so much for doing that. So, you can just like go directly exactly to the topic that you really want to hear. And yeah, that's my part of housekeeping today. And I see in the chat that Viral has joined. Hello, thank you for joining us, Viral. Nice to meet you. And yeah. So, Dr. Sassi, you tell me this morning that you have a announcement to make. So the floor is yours.
I don't know where to start and how to torture a little bit more to stretch it long. Let's start maybe with there is an international film festival in Houston. in Texas. And it was founded in 1961. It's huge. And I know these people fairly good because got the first award for feature film in 1994. And so I sent sometimes stuff to them. For example, I sent the show that Max initiated with an idea, the artist intent that I did last year to that festival, Chapter
No.
New Media. And
No.
we won gold.
Oh my God. Amazing. Amazing. Congratulations. Wow.
Yeah, congratulations
Wow.
to you as well. And
High
to
five.
Simon Walker's
High
team, right?
five.
Yeah.
Simon, and yeah, we have to.
Yes,
I mean, I would like to also thank Simon Walker, and for always making this thing available. To be a great enabler to enable these
absolutely.
things to happen. And Dr. Sassi, that's amazing. That's really amazing. No,
And one
wow.
name is, I need to name one more. It's Paul Babb. He is the
And Paul
pretty much the
Babb, yes.
producer of all of that. Simon is the enabler, the line producer, good spirits, everything. And we made it happen. So congratulations to you as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's team effort. Congratulations to the team. Thank you so much. This is so amazing. Oh, wow. Well, we need to post it. We need to
So
make a post on that on Maxon. Right.
yeah, and this award was
That's-
not the one that we got right now. We have to order that, but
yeah.
this is an older one. I fished it out of my box because I don't have them normally around to stay humble. They're all in the big box. And I hope you enjoy yours as well. You get also maybe a poster if you like, so you can put
Oh,
it on the wall.
yes, please, please. I'll contact you. I'll private message you after the show and
Yeah,
to talk about this. And I think if you guys want to see that show, that's a really really nice show. Let me share my screen. I think Dr. Sassi was. I think the guest of that show was Dr. Sassi, and he was talking
yeah,
about exploring your artistic intent because most of the time, like when you want to create an artwork, it's like where do you get the inspirations and so on and so forth, and like these is like the compass, the knowledge that Dr. Sassi shared with us as like a really nice how do you call it, principle that you can um, use in your projects. And it is available in Maxon training team. It's called exploring your artistic intent, and like I mentioned before, every single chapter is time stamped. So if you want to skip my blabbering in the front like before the show, it's just like follow the timestamp and you'll be good, right?
yeah.
So, wow, Dr. Sassi, thank you so much. Congratulations once again. Very nice. Uh,
So I
I
hope
mean,
you can continue now with your show. Are not thrown off course.
yeah, you are welcome to stay if you want to. But yeah, whatever you want. Like if you want to stay, you're most welcome. And
Thank
like
you.
I mentioned before to the audience, what I want to do today, what we are going to do today is actually just have some fun. And if you see the hashtag for the show today is like movie buff. So we're gonna stretch our movie muscle today and to talk about movies, and particularly because it's May the 4th, and we want to celebrate Star Wars, and we pick one like movie that we love the most. I mean, I picked one movie that I like the most, and that movie, the one that I pick, is The Force Awakens. Star Wars The Force Awakens. It was released in 2015, And I remember the hype that I felt like waiting for that Star Wars, because the pause from the last Star Wars released, like the last released Star Wars movie, to this one is like very long. I thought it's like, okay, we will never see new Star Wars movie anymore. But then the Force Awakens came along, and man, that was like really amazing. And it's a really amazing movies, and it leaves a lot of impressions on me. Have you watched these movies, by the way, Danny or Dr. Sassi?
Yes, I have. And of course, all of them, and many times. And I discover each time something new. But what I want to say, I don't want to disturb you too. Have a great show
Thank you.
and
Thank you so
contact me
much.
later. I will do my best to get what you need.
Awesome, awesome.
Bye, Sassi. Thanks for the
And
announcement.
have a
Bye.
nice day. Have a nice day, and
Yeah.
congratulations once again. That's amazing.
To you as well. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Wow, that's really cool. Danny, do you want to stay here, or do you want to stay
I
in the
can
studio?
say, I mean, I might turn my mic and camera off while you are
Okay,
explaining us
right,
everything. To answer
cool.
your question, I have watched a couple of the Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
movies, but I am not an expert, so I'm happy to see what you show us and get more into this
That,
Star Wars world in May the
yeah,
4th today.
that's the best about movie, right? You just need to enjoy it. You don't need to be an expert to enjoy
Yeah,
movie,
I
right?
remember liking them, but
Yeah,
I'm not that deep into it. I just watched them
yeah,
probably once long ago, so I'm not the Star Wars freak, but I know that many people are, so I'm happy for them and happy that we have such an interesting, likable topic today for our viewers.
that's really cool. Really cool. So yeah, and in today's episode, we will try to grade or to borrow the grade from Star Wars Force Awakens. Of course, the footage that I'm using today was not shot with this grade in mind, but perhaps by orienting our visions to this one particular movie, you can learn some tips and tricks that you can use in your projects, right? The thing that really lasted on me is like the color schemes of that movie. You see a lot of bright saturated red, and you see a lot of bright saturated blue, and especially the battle with Rey and Kylo Ren, and the lightsabers and so on. It's just fantastic, and let's include that to our grade today. And just to learn more about the movies, because you know before we go and search. Before we go and do our grade, I think it's also nice if you learn a little bit about the movies, the movie itself, how it was made, who are the people behind it, and which camera it was used, or which film stocks was it used, or even is it like even shot on film, or is it like purely digital, shot digitally. The platform that I'm using here is called Shotdeck, and it's a really nice website that has like a lot of like a um, how do you call it, stills from the movie. And if you click one of the stills, you can also see like the details of that particular shots, right? And we know that here it was shot with Panavision Millennium XL or XL2 camera. So most probably this is shot on film, but we don't know that what type of film stocks we have here. And normally we'll see also the colorist for that particular movie, but apparently here it's not available. So the next website that you can use to check like missing information from Shotdeck, if you don't know, if you really want to know what the film stocks normally use, and all the other details that may or may not available in Shotdeck, is this nice website called Shot on What. And here in Shot on What, you can just type in the title. I already did, and you can just select the movie. And in the on the details, you can really see that the the all the equipment that was used for the movie. So here you can see that the film stocks, there are 3 film stocks used to shot the movie. So the negative stocks, there are 3 different negative. The Kodak Vision 3, 250D, 500T, and 50D. So I think that's nice if we want to start if we want to borrow that informations in our grade. I think we can start the grade today by using a film emulations, most likely, right? And here in the film negative stock, we have 3 different stocks. And what about the film print? And here in the informations, we say that we have the movie was print on Kodak 2393. So it's like a more modern versions of 2383, right? But the 2393 is a little bit special. It's like a little bit hard to find, like the film emulation that was based on Kodak 2393. It has like some characteristic that differs from 2383. But if you want to learn more about the different characteristic of 2383 and 93, I think the best resource is to go to Kodak website itself and search for those particular film, and you can read the data sheet of that particular film. So that's if you want to spend more time on your research, right? And again, if we go to IMDb, and if I'm just searching for colorist, so I'll just type in color, see that Jenny Harling is the hair colorist for this movie. But we want to see who is the digital intermediate colorist. Here we have Cody Baker as assistant colorist, and the temp colorist, Juan Ignacio Cabrera, who is also the instructor at International Colorist Academy. Check out Juan. Really nice. He has a really nice portfolio as well. And the color scientist is Michael Lafuente. And the dailies colorist is Dave Lee, and Darren Ray is also the dailies colorist. And apparently, the digital intermediate colorist is Stefan Sonnenfeld, the CEO or the founder of Company 3. So I think that's really nice information. I mean, Stefan Sonnenfeld is really he has really a like thorough and really nice portfolio. He graded a lot of like my favorite movies. Like I think in one of the episode we talk about Top Gun, Maverick, which also graded by Stefan. That's really cool. Okay, and I think that's like the informations that we can use to our grade. And why don't we just move to resolve? Okay, so let's move to resolve.
I'm gonna go backstage then.
Okay.
I'll be reachable in case you or anyone needs me.
Alrighty.
Right,
Thank you,
see
Danny. So maybe that's better. Okay. So here I have some footage coming from ArtGrid. So these are just a stock footage. I searched for some space themed footage just because, we want to do something on, space related, right? Namely Star Wars. And it happened to be that in this particular footage, there are reds and there are blues. I think you can already see that in the lock state that there are already some blues in the highlight. There are like 3 different format of this footage. The first of this footage there are 2 different formats. Most of the footage that coming from the camera are coming from Red Raven camera. So I think this was shot in Red Lock 3G10 in red white gamut. And there are 2 footage coming from 3D render. So most likely it is already in your display space, and most likely it is either Rec 709 or sRGB footage, right? So it's a 3D renders. That's all for the preparations, the editing timeline. And if you see that I just have like one layer of how do you call it, stacks in my edits. I think that's coming from the best practice. Whenever you are preparing your timeline to go for a grade, I think it is always nice if you can always simplify your timeline. So anything that is not used, anything that stacked, probably if you can, like make them as flat as possible, right? So that's the timeline. And if we go to the color page, the very first thing that I do is that I group them. And here, instead of grouping them from the camera source, I group them based on scene. So here I have like this astronaut or space people, spaceman in the hallway. Maybe it's in a ship or somewhere. I don't know, you name it, but it seems to be that it is the same scenes. So we'll group that based on scenes. So how do you group that? You just select everything, like the clips that you want to group together, right click, and then you can add into a new group, or you can add into the current group, right? And then I have another scene that has like this foliage in it, and it seems to be that this is like different than this, right? Different scene than the previous one. So I grouped these three together based on the scenes. And the last one, we have the 3D render, which is also belong to a group. What is nice about grouping is that it allows you to work faster. Why? Because now you, instead of having like two node categories, namely clip and timeline, as soon as you group your clips, you will have four different node editor. Here I have the timeline and the clips, and then also the group pre-clips before the clip. And then I have the group post clip, which is there's already something happening. Let us reset everything and see here, also reset everything. And here, okay. So that's how I prep the grading environment. I hope that I think you can learn something from it. I hope that you can learn something from it if you want to. If you already know how to group the clips, then perfect, nice. I think we have we are on same page from now on, right? So let me turn off my camera so that you can see all the nice interface, okay? Let me turn off my logo as well, and there you go. Let's turn it to full screen. So the first thing that I want to do is that I want to develop a look that serve every single clips in the edit, right? I don't want to create a look that just work in particular clip and then not working on the other clip. So the idea is that I really want to have one universal look that I can just apply to everything, and then after that, I will just tweak the look, tweak the clips before the looks. So it is like doing an effort to make that look works for everything, right? But I already am ahead of myself. Instead of creating the look, first thing first, I really want to always be working in a color managed environment. So working in a color managed environment allows you to be faster and to be more accurate. And you don't have to really how do you call it, work display referred anymore, since we can use math to normalize our image, to transform our image. So by using color management framework, you will be like throwing all these clips in one universal space, and in that universal space, your tools, your adjustment, everything will behave the same. Although those clips are coming from different source. And in this case, we have two different clips. One is coming from camera, a red camera, and one is coming from the 3D render. So I think working in a unified working environment, that would be beneficial. So if you are already like frequent visitors in this webinar, you probably already know that we normally set up ACES together, but let's do something different because we haven't talked much about the DaVinci color management, right? We can work in DaVinci color management as well. And to do that, I can just launch my project settings. And inside my project settings, I go to the color management, and under color science, I'll select DaVinci Color Manage. And instead of having automatic color management, I want everything to be manual, right? So the color processing mode, I can select to custom. And upon selecting custom, I have plenty more options available, right? So in this case, my input color space, most of my clips are coming from red cameras. So I can select red white gamut and red log 3G10 as my input color space. And my timeline space would be DaVinci white gamut with DaVinci intermediate, right? And my timeline working luminance, I can work in HDR 10,000 nits, or why limit yourself to just 10,000 nits when you can access, I mean, that was the, sorry, the previous option was 1,000 nits. What I want to say is that why limit yourself to 1,000 nits if you can access 10,000 nits, right? So you can just throw everything to 10,000 nits working space, and then from that, you can tone map it to your display space. And in this case, the output color space, right? And in output color space, we can select Rec 709 because we want to target Rec 709 monitor with gamma 2.4, and I want to limit my output gamut into the output color space. And in this case, the Rec 709 gamma 2.4. But if I just want to be secure, I can just state it, it's Rec 709, okay? And I want to resize my transformations in linear. All right, output, I can select luminance mapping, or I can just leave it to DaVinci, just like that. And what's nice, what's different here, the 3D lookup table interpolations is set to tetrahedral. So that is my settings for my project setup, my project settings for DaVinci Color Manage. So here, let's press save, and we can double check again, because normally things like this happen, that normally the input color space is defaulted to Rec 709. But apparently not. It is, the input is set to red white gamut. Really nice. Let us update all thumbnails. Very nice. And now for this too, the input color space is not supposed to be red white gamut, right? And this one we need to change into sRGB, right? Okay, apparently it's already selected as RGB. Probably because I was playing around with this timeline before. Okay. Okay, cool. So that was it. And that was my like preparations for the grading. So now before we grade, let us create the look that can serve as a universal look, right? So one thing that come to my mind is that I really want to have a filmic look. I want to base my looks based on the film emulations, because we know that the movie was shot using film negative and then also printed on film print. But there is this thing about film emulations. Depends on which film stocks that you use, or depends on the processing itself, and depends on the brand of the scanner. Even that, it can lead to a different result of the how do you call it, print emulations, right? So if you compare like film, a footage that was shot on film, printed on film, and then after that you compared a digital image, and then you slap a print film emulation LUT on top of that, they will totally like look different. I mean, it's a questions that until now probably, you know, even me I have difficult time to answer why is that, because it's apparently still like a mystery, like to me at the moment. um if you follow like a lot of like film profiling process, like I said before, depends on whatever hardware that you use, depends on the measurements technique that you use, your result may look different. So I think in this in our effort to create a film emulation look, I think it is nice to just create a loose print film emulation look that can serve as a universal look without having to having to get like a one-to-one reproductions of that, right? There are plenty different ways that you can use print film emulations technique. Inside Resolve, there are several LUT that you can use for print film emulations, right? So if you go to LUT and you click on film looks, you'll see that there are several print film emulation LUT. And since we cannot access 2393, there's no 2393. The only available is that 2383. I think it's quite fine. But the thing is, like here, upon applying this LUT, you will see that it's like all over the place. That is because this LUT requires specific input and it will return a specific output. And to do that, we can use the color space transform to adjust our input to this LUT and then transform the output back to our color management framework. So it means like we need to go to Rec 709 with a Scenian film gamma, and then we need to apply another color space transform after the LUT to go from Rec 709 gamma 2.4 into DaVinci Intermediate, DaVinci White Gamut again. I mean, you can do that. That's another way to do that. But if you have Magic Bullet Suite, you can use Magic Bullet Looks, because inside Magic Bullet Looks, there are already some film profile that you can work with. So let's just use that, right? So let's type in looks. And I'm applying looks into my node here. And here, what we need to understand that looks can work in ACES, but when we want to work in DaVinci White Gamut, some adjustment may need to be done, right? Because there is no DaVinci White Gamut available in the color management input and output inside Magic Bullet Looks, right? So what we can do is that we can round trip this particular node into ACES and back into DaVinci White Gamut. And the easiest way to do that is that you can just right-click it, select the color space. Here I will select ACES, color space, and the gamma, I will use ACEScct, right? So once I click Edit Look, we'll see the look window. So let me go full screen again. Sorry. There you go. And here in the input, I will select the mode into OpenColor.io -ACES. And in the input, I will select ACEScct. And on the output, again, same ACEScct. Or I can just select same as input, just like that, right? And I can select my preview to be in Rec 709. Okay, so that's it. That's how I can round trip from DaVinci White Gamut into ACES and back into DaVinci White Gamut again, right? So now let us play around with the looks, right? So what I want to emulate is that I want to emulate the look of film print, and I also want to emulate the look of film negatives. So probably it is nice if I use one of our film print, namely the Kodak 2383. We don't have the 2393, but we have the 2395, which is like a less contrasty film stocks, right? Film print. So let's just stay in 2393, and I don't want to use the grain inside film print because we have a more superior grain tools that you can use later on, namely renoiser. But here in film tools, you can also apply like a uniform grain that you can use, but I don't want to do that. And here I can reduce my contrast a little bit, maybe something like that. And instead of using the Magic Bullet film print at its full power, maybe I just reduce it, maybe just around 65. And I can just drag and drop film negative. And if we select the profile that we want to work with, I think Kodak 5219 was one of the negative used for that movie. I think we can just use that. And again, like before, the grain, I'll use it. I'll set it to 0. And let's play around with the contrast. Maybe it's a little bit too contrasty. And here I can just reduce my contrast. And now, instead of using it at 100%, I can probably just use it around 45%. That's nice because in the last update, every single tools in Magic Bullet Looks has this strength slider. So you now can like create a very small adjustment in one tool and then stack with another tools, but always with a small opacity or small strength. And in the end, your look may look very sophisticated, right? And one of the attribute of film print or film in general, shooting in film in general, is that it creates halations artifacts, right? So if you have like a highly contrasting area, normally you have like a reddish glow on that highly contrasting area, and we can emulate that using film halations. You can, to see that like more obvious, you can see that by selecting like the very obvious preset here. But I want it to look a little bit more modern, so I just used the modern 35. And again, like before, let's just reduce it slightly. And what we can also do is that we can use diffusions, right? Optical diffusions right at the beginning to create like this very soft highlight. But actually, I already prepare a very nice set of preset that you can use, that we can use for our starting point. And I cheat a little bit. And I created the preset like that, which is like pretty much the same principle, right? At first, I have the film print, okay? Contrast set to -50, strength at 65, and I have film negative set at 35%. And same as before, no grain. The vintage modern is pushed slightly more towards the modern side. And then right at the end, I have colorista just to tackle the black point of the image. So without colorista, if you pay attention to the scope, without colorista, it will be the blacks is slightly lifted. But with colorista, I have the blacks like purely hitting at 0. Okay. And before film print, I use renoiser with slightly sharpening, like very little sharpening going on. And before the film negative, same as before, the halations, modern 35 highlights at its fullest, and also optical diffusions. And here, I think I was using the Glimmer glass full, and I was reducing the density. And let us push a little bit towards the cool side here. And now we can just confirm that. Well, this is before the look, and that is with the look. And it's not much, really. I mean, it's not really a heavy look because let me switch. So the idea is that I want to create a universal look that will work to all with all our scenes. So if I select everything and click create the split screen, where is it? Selected clip. There you go. So Command F. Now we can see that without look and with the look, the thing that you need to pay attention here is that if your looks is actually creating artifacts in any of these shots, and apparently it doesn't. And I quite like it because it shifts the primaries of the color more like towards like how like as if you are shooting it with film negative and then print it to film print, right? So there's that thing happening in the look. Let me exit full screen. And yeah, like before, it's not very obnoxious and heavy look to begin with. Remember the word to begin with, because we will tweak this to work with our image, to reference image, I mean. Okay, so now let us go back to the clip level. And if we go to the gallery, we can pick one of the reference image. I think this one works really nicely. So the scene where Kylo Ren is capturing Rey and then trying to interrogate her, and that was a funny twist in that scene, but I will not spoil it for you. If we check that, I mean, you can really see that there's like a similar color scheme happening. There's blue and cyan in the shadow, and there's like warm highlight with major red elements in the scene. We can try to emulate that, right? So perhaps we can start with this one. And before we grade, another thing that I really want to pass on to you is that the idea of working with a fixed node structure. That is really nice because working with a fixed node structure, it's repeatable. So you will know your way in and out in every single different clips. So let us do that. So let's create the node template together. The first one, I would normally love to do noise reductions. And let me label this as NR. And after this, let us create one more node. Let's make it parallel, because I love to work in parallel node. Why? Because all the, how do you call it? The adjustment, it like is uniformly combined with this operation here, parallel operations. So let's create another 3 nodes on the top and same amount at the bottom. And here probably we can I will, okay, so just to give you my method, the method to my madness is that the first layers of node, I will use it mostly for my primary corrections, right? Targeting the exposure, the contrast, the saturations, and balancing. And then the second one, anytime I want to do the secondaries like curves or windows or anything like very specified adjustment, then I will do it in the second layer. And in the third layer, normally one pass of like this primary balance, primary operations, primary corrections is not really enough for me. And I sometimes figure out that sometimes I need to tweak like the extra contrast. I need to play around with the gamma or play around with the lift and so on and so forth. That's where I need the third layer. And I think we can see that in actions later on. And then after that, I will create another set of parallel nodes. And here, the shortcut for that is like Option P. Here, I will create a parallel nodes just to play around with my windows. And here, I will select the node and I will create the outside node. And to create the outside node, the shortcut is just Option O. Same like here, Option O, Option O again, Option O. And that's literally it. These are my power windows. I mean, remember when we are, how do you call it? When we are dealing with the still images, the mostly, like anytime you ever work with stills photography, the most like adjustment that you need to do, and it's like really giving you the most reward, in my opinion, is that the dodge and burning. And I love to use that principle by using a power window and dodge and burn my image. And that's why I specified like some areas in my node tree just to do the dodge and burn. And last but not least, I will have another parallel node just to do like trims. Okay. Anytime I want to do trims, I'll do it at the end. So the first one here, let's label it. This gonna be exposure, and this gonna be saturations. This will be contrast, and this will be the balance. Here it will be curve, and here it will be mostly whatever ever left from this adjustment. I will not name this remaining because it will take more time for that. But if you want to, the good practice, always rename it so you know what you're dealing with. So now I'll just select like the clips that I want to apply this node graph to, and I do the middle click, replace existing grades. So now, as you can see, all my clips have exactly the same node template. That's really neat. So now let's begin. Let's start into the fun stuff, that is grading under the looks that we already create, right? So if we revisit our looks, remember that we have print film and film negative applied onto it. And then we also have halations and also the diffusions applied onto it. I think you can really see in the neon light that it creates like this soft diffusions around it, right? So that is our look. And now perhaps let's create the scene look, because we have like different scenes here, right? We have like this scenes that's screaming like blue, like a really cool scene, and we have like a really warm scene, and then we have like this 3D renders, which is most likely showing a little bit of the outside of the planet. So in this case here, let us create different scene look that will serve as a look that will work on this particular scenes. And in this case, what I really want to do is that just cool down the image a little bit. Maybe we can use either curves or the primaries. Let's use the primaries first. Let's reduce red. And as we reduce red, we're introducing the opposite color of red, which is the cyan, right? And then let's also tweak the blue, push the blue just slightly up. So this is like my scene look that I'm going to use for this particular scenes, for all of the scenes, right? Just a very simple scene look that is applied to all the clips in the scene, right? So now let's go back into the clip level and let's grade this particular clip to work to how do you call it, to be similar to our reference image, right? So the first thing that I can see here, we have difference in exposure, maybe also difference in contrast if you see the waveform, right? So let me hide my camera Again, let me make it full screen. And first, let me visit my exposure node, and I'll use the exposure control in the HDR wheel. And I heard that this exposure control in the HDR wheel is photometrically more accurate. So that is really nice to know, maybe around that. So if I disable the split screen and before the exposure adjustment and after the exposure adjustment, I think that's really nice. And now let's move on to the contrast, and I will just use the normal contrast and pivot tool. But what's different here is that instead of using the random pivot or the pivot based on the effect that I generate. So for example, I create some contrast and moving around the pivot around. Instead of doing that, maybe I can target the contrast and pivot to work with the DaVinci White Gamut. We know that DaVinci White Gamut middle gray is 0.336. So I can use that as my pivot number. So I will not adjust that area, the 0.336 value, but I will just adjust the shadow and highlights below and above that point by using the contrast adjustment, right? So I can increase my contrast just slightly. Let's see our reference image again. Maybe that's a little bit too much contrast for this one. And we can bring the exposure again back down just slightly. Right. So now we see that we have like a practical light in the clip. Here we have the neon light there, and here we have the neon light as well, the practical light in the scene. And the practical light here was hitting the roof in our waveform scope, right? But our practical light is not there yet. It's not quite there yet. It's somewhere around there, right? Here. So I want to handle that, and I can tackle that by using the HDR wheel. Well, we are in HDR wheel already. And what's nice is that all these wheels are already targeted the specific part of your image. So I think this is either in highlight or specular. So if I'm going to highlight, I see that I'm targeting that part, but it seems like the best way to do that, the best approach to do that is by using the specular wheel. And here I will just increase my specular. Maybe just increase it to 1. Not there yet. 2.5. Nice. Or maybe 3. So that's it, right? So we stretch our specular highlight to be like on that territory already. Although it's not as, bright as this one, but I think it is acceptable to just live in that area. And again, if you pay attention to this one, you see that the highlight, this specular highlight, is a little bit on the cooler side, and here as well compared to our specular light. Our specular highlight looks like it is a little bit on the warmer side, and we can tackle that issue by introducing the opposite color of that color tinge in our specular, right? So it looks yellowish to me. So let me just push the puck towards blue in the specular wheel. And if you push it too much, of course, it will become something like that. But just, just slightly. Hang on. So this is before, and that is after. It feels cleaner, and I like it, right? So let's just stay with that. Next one is that we can try to balance our image to resemble that one, to resemble our reference image. And when balancing our image, I normally love to work just with the primaries, and in this case, just to work with the offset. Maybe I want to warm up the image a little bit just by introducing a little bit of yellow. That is by reducing the blue in the offset. You can really see that it's a little bit, just teeny tiny red, yellow, and maybe introduce cyan a little bit by reducing red. So this is before, after. I mean, we can go like that, but no, I think that's too much. And the same like the yellow. Oh, sorry. My node is turned off, so you won't see anything. Duh. There you go. I think that's way too much, but we can just reduce it slightly more. Something like that. So before the balance and after the balance, it looks really nice. Cool. Now let's move forward. Let's compare again our image. It seems to me that the blue is not quite there yet. I have like a different tinge of blue. Okay. Different shade of blue. And we can target that. We can do that with our curve tool. And here I can select the blue and then the cyan using the hue versus hue curve in Resolve. And I can just move my blue more towards the cyan. I mean, it more towards green if I do it too much. I don't want that, just slightly. And then the cyan more towards the blue. So before, after. It's very subtle. I hope that you guys can see that. I mean, it really reflects on the space suit, right? So this is before the balance and before the curve. So with the balance and then the curve adjustment. Also, what we can see that we have different shade of red as well, right? So I can target that by selecting my reds. And perhaps bring it up more towards magenta or towards orange. No, it's supposed to be more towards magenta. Just a teeny tiny bit like that. And there we go. And also here in saturations, I want to use like this tricks that you can probably already see a lot over the internet is that, you can actually add saturations while also reducing the luminosity of your of the saturated colors, because that's how normally saturation works in film, right? The more saturated a color is, normally the darker they are. And the tricks to do that is that I can go and select the color space, change it to HSV, and just enable the channel 2. So now my RGB becomes HSV. And since I am disabling channel 1 and channel 3, the only active channel here is just the saturation channel. And by setting the luminance mix into 0, I can use my gain wheel to increase saturations. So before the saturations, after. It looks nicer, right? I hope you agree with me. So before the saturations, you can watch that in the vector scope. So that is after the saturations. So now, I think we are close enough. And I mean, look at the diffusions. I think like the things that really stand out here is like I really love the way the diffusions that we have inside Magic Bullet looks. So this is before without the looks. Look at that. I mean, you have nothing, literally no diffusions in the neon sign there, and that is with the diffusions. It looks cooler. I like it. Right. Okay, the next adjustment that I want to do is probably I feel that the red is a little bit more towards oranges, and we can use hue versus hue still, but we can also probably use the RGB mixer and increase more blue in the red. Or maybe this one, something. Or let me just reduce the blue a little bit and increase that one. So before, after, that's a little bit much. So before, after, still too much. Yeah, it's more like it. So let me go full screen. So before, after thing. I like that. Right. So now I think this is okay if we compare with our reference image again. And I think the red needs to be a little bit less bright than before. And we can go back to our curve. And here, let's go to our red in our hue versus luminance. And just select the red a little bit. And make it darker. There you go. Something like that. And perhaps we can also target our blue and cyan. And darken it slightly. So the overall adjustment, the overall adjustment would be, that's before and that's after. I think I like it. Sorry. Okay. So that's literally it. I think let us compare again. Okay, let's set to waveform. I think we're pretty close, right? Now, the thing is like the next step that I will do is that it's like similar step like I would normally do with my print still images. That is by, breaking the image and do dodge and burn. And that's like literally the fun stuff. And let's do that by using all these windows available here. And let me go to the power window, and we see that here is like the brightest part of the image. Maybe we should exaggerate that a little bit and just create like this circular window, make it super soft. And if I press Shift H, sorry, it's supposed to be Shift H and something like that. Now, by having like inside and outside node, I already have like the outside part without creating like the outside node after that. So it's already there, it's ready. So I can go to the outside part without inverting my power windows, of course. I go to the outside part and let's reduce the highlight, reduce the gain slightly. Or we can also change the gamma into linear, because gain operations in linear tone curve is exposure control, right? And while we are in linear gamma, let me just reduce it a little bit. While we're in linear tone curve here in node number 19, what we can also do is that we can blur our image a little bit while we are in the linear space. So that is before, that is after. I like it. And here inside the particular node windows here, again, you can increase the contrast slightly. Not too much, of course. That would be crazy. Just a little bit. There you go. Okay, and here probably I want to have like a gradient window. something like that. And if I press Shift H, there you go. Because I see that, there's a light source coming from the left side of the screen, right? So here on the outside node, I can go just on the HDR wheel and reduce the exposure to minus 0.25. So quarter, okay? And on this one, probably I'll go and increase the gamma slightly. Just like that, right? So this is before, after. I think that's nice. And now what we can actually do is that before we do the noise reductions, because I think we talk about noise reductions pretty often already. You know how to do that. Instead of spending time on that, I think it is better if we go to another clip and then recreate the look there, right? So in this clip, I'll just steal the look from that one. And if I compare the two together, it seems like it's not working. So now, first of all, I will reset my power windows node. And here I will disable everything. And, you work by reducing, how do you call it? Reduce the variables, all right? So you want to reduce the variables until you see which one costs what. So in this case, the exposure, I can even go further. So it's probably minus 0.6. That's nice. And the contrast, okay, I like the contrast. And the balance, does the balance work? Apparently not. See, the balance is causing the problem. So let's reset the balance, reduce red slightly, and just reduce blue just a teeny tiny bit. There you go. And here in the curve, does it work? It works nice. And the HDR before and after, I think I like it with the HDR. And the saturations, of course, it needs to be applied as well. And same as before, I will steal the grade from this one and just apply it to this particular one. And now, if we compare the two, still, it seems like something is not working. Let's disable this, right? And let's see which one is actually creating this. So only the exposure. So yeah, seems like the exposure is a little bit much. So we'll go back again to minus 0.4. What about the contrast? And the contrast is a little bit much. Something like that. And maybe bring up the exposure a little bit more. It's probably 0.3, something like that. And the saturations, I like it. The balance, yes, the balance is off. Let's go to our primaries and pump the blue, bring the blue back a little bit. I have light on top of my monitor and it's actually blinding me. This is not a good practice, guys. All right. Something like this, probably. No, that's more blue than before. All right, let's just reset this and start from ground zero. Reduce the blue to increase yellow a little bit and reduce red to increase cyan. But that's a little bit much. Maybe the red should stay as it is. I think that's close enough. And we can rotate the hue with this one. Yes. Now we're talking. It looks similar, right? And with the HDR on, okay. Seems like we got it. And that's actually like how I will repeat the grade, right? So we'll just use exactly that one and compare it. and see if there's a adjustment that needs to be done. I think we have like a too heavy of exposure adjustment for here. I think that's nice. And now let's go back to our image here and let's start the dodge and burning process, right? I'll go back into my windows here. I feel that like this area of the image is like the brightest part of the image. And I think that's where the focus of our audience should go, okay? Let's go to the power window, same as before. Create a circular power window, and make it super soft, something like this, and probably just put it like there. Yeah, Shift H, sorry, to see the area. And then I'll target the outside and drop my exposure to -0.4. See? For after. The image has shape now, all right? It has something onto it. And I add contrast here in the middle part of the image. And same as before, it feels like there's a light source coming from the left of the screen. So we can emulate that, Shift H. Here I can reduce my exposure again to -0.25, just a quarter. And here, perhaps increase my gamma just slightly. Right? So that's it for that one. And this one, same as before, power window. Soften it, like really soften it. Shift H. Well, ideally, guys, when you're doing this, ideally you need to check if you have like a camera on a tripod or do you have a camera movement. If you have a camera movement, you probably want to track it, right? But we're lucky that we don't have camera movement that much. So I think without tracking, I think we can go by without tracking. So turn off Shift H and I'll target the outside. Go back to the HDR wheel, -3.3, I mean. And here, I think it's already contrasty enough in the middle. We don't need that. And this is what nice, you know. You can also change the color temperature on that targeted area. So for example, on the outside of this one, I can probably add more blue by add more cyan by reducing red. Like, let me do the extreme, you know, like you can do exactly like that. And you can make the middle area warmer, but we don't want to do that here. Okay. I think that's nice for that one. I think that's okay. And let's move to this one. Okay. Let's see if we can steal one of this grade, one of this adjustment, and make it works for this particular one. Let's disable everything and reset all the power windows because we don't need the power windows here. And there you go. Let's check the exposure a little bit. Okay, let's compare it to something like, let's compare it to something like that. Okay, we need like a huge exposure reductions, probably -1. And let's see with the contrast adjustment as well. I want to have more contrast, and we can increase the contrast. 1.2 is fine. And I can drop the exposure a little bit further. So perhaps -1.85. There you go. Or maybe -1.5. Now we're talking, right? So before the exposure, after the exposure, and before the contrast adjustment, with the contrast adjustment, the saturations. Oh, I love the red and blue color scheme going on there. And then let's see what the balance is actually doing. It is actually shifting the blue towards cyan, which is desirable. And let's see if the curve is also doing something. And here probably is the thing. Oh, yeah, it's working. So the RGB mixer adjustment here is also works nicely to the scene. And that's actually what's nice if you have a really well-planned shots to in the acquisitions, in the productions, because it's gonna be a joy to grade, right? You just apply literally the grade that you do in the neighboring clip, and it works. That's nice. So now we can see that the specular, probably it's a little bit too hot. So probably we can reduce that. Maybe around 2 or maybe just 1.5. Something like that. That's nice. Okay. And before we apply power window, let me just copy the grade from this one. And together, I think they looks quite the same. There you go, right? So let's go back here and let's shape the image a little bit, okay? I want to shape the image and draw the attention to the astronaut. And I can do that by applying my power window. And just make it somewhere over there. Make it super soft. And do we have camera movement? No, fine. And we'll go to the outside and reduce the exposure minus 0.5. And here on the inside, we can just increase the contrast slightly. Something like that. And I think there is another light source coming from the right of the screen, and we can do that. H, really cool. We can just brighten the part slightly using gamma. I mean, some colorists really don't like to work with gamma and just stay truthful with the photography. It's a really, depends on you, depends on your philosophy to use it or not to use it. I sometimes use it. I sometimes try to avoid it, but I like it. Okay, so that's it. That's for this image. And the other one, let's go to this one. And I think here we have like the split lighting situations, although the light shape, the form of on her face is not telling her that this is a split lighting situations. But that's because she and the object and the subject has this LED things going on inside the helmet. So you can really tell the lighting shape based on the face, because you normally just judge that based on the shadow under the nose of the subject, right? If you're into portrait photography, for example. So here, what we can do is that we can just target one specific area, and let's create like a rectangle window, make it super soft, something like that. We can also do it with gradient, by the way. And I'll target the outside and reduce exposure slightly on that one. And here, increase the contrast. So this is actually what's nice about grading, shaping your image. I love it. And again, I think that works. We can add another window just on her to create like a vignette-ish, but I don't want to do that because we probably can do that later on. So we are severely over the hour, but let's do the rest. Let's at least do the last remaining images. And perhaps let's move to this different scene. And let's see, here we want this particular scene to be a little bit warmer. And we can do that by either just using the offset or using the temperature control in HDR wheels. You know, we are spoiled with options. Or you can also do the split toning with curve. What do we do? I think I'll choose the easy way and just use the offset. Increase red slightly and reduce blue. And this is before, and that's after. Okay, now let's do the gray. And same as before, because here, what I want to point out is that in the reference image, we don't have one particular scene that, you know, representing this type of scene, like indoor. This one is like probably more towards the CGI image over here. But perhaps what we can do is that we can pick one of this image, and instead of making it, this cooler like this image, we can just make it warmer, because I think they are in the same spaceship, right? Except that different scene. So let's do that. First, let's do the exposure adjustment. Something like that, perhaps even more. And here we can steal the contrast from this particular, Control C. Then here, Control V. So the saturations apparently cost me this, right? It cost me like this artifacting in the highlight. But that's probably because, let's check our vector scope. Perhaps we should work in the post group level and create something to alleviate that, right? So let's create another node after that. And here, that's a very simple fix. I think we can go to the saturations versus saturations, create a pivot point, and just reduce the highly saturated area and move the pivot point a little bit. Yeah, that works. Okay, and then another one is the Luma versus Sat. And I'll target the brightest part and just reduce the Luma, the saturations on the brightest part of the image. I think that's okay. That's it. Let's go back to our image and let's start grading. So that's with the saturations, and that's with the exposure. Uh-oh, what is happening? And here, I think we can go back to our HDR wheel and target the specular and just bring it up just slightly, something like that, right? So this is before and after. And if you want to, you can also make the specular a little bit cooler. And we can now play around with the contrast. Still the same pivot point value and just add contrast. Woo, look at that. Love it. And then now we can just play around with the balance. Just cool it slightly and increase the blue slightly. Okay, maybe that's a little bit much. Something like that. I think if we move from this scene to this scene, we can tell that, you know, they are living in the same spaceship. But, you know, we need to turn the blue towards cyan, and we can do that here and make it a little bit more cyan-y, something like this. All right. And like I totally, I mean, literally, I will just repeat the process that I will do, that I have done in the previous image. But, you know, let's just repeat it, because why not? I want to introduce cyan. So perhaps I can add blue to my, sorry, add green to my blue. There you go. Something like that. Oops. So this is before, after. Perhaps split the difference because it'll be too much. 0.5. Something like that. I like it. And now if you see that the foliage is a little bit more towards the warm side. And if we compare it to Force Awaken, we have like this very deep green, rich foliage, right? So we can alleviate that by targeting the hue of the green, or maybe here even the yellow. So perhaps that one, reduce it. And oh, I don't know what is happening with my computer, but you can really see that we can really see the effects that it is greener than before, right? And we can also reduce the luminosity of that particular hue that we are targeting, so it appears to be darker. Yep, I think I just killed my computer. I don't know what's happening here. Okay, that's it. Maybe just like that. So this is before, and that is after. I like it. So just to save time, perhaps we can skip the dodge and burning and, targeting the specific area, because I think there are some camera movement in this one. Uh-oh. I don't know. My computer is possessed at the moment. Sorry, guys. So let me just steal that grade and apply it here. And this one, again, appears a little bit too dark. Let's go back to the HDR and reduce it probably around there. So if we move from here to there, it's slightly a little bit too dark. Minus 0.15. Something like that. It could work. There and there and there. Ideally, if I want to, I can brighten this panel and track it using one of this node that we dedicate here. And also in this one, I probably track this panel and track just the object here, the plant, and then just make it brighter and make the surroundings a little bit cooler or darker, right? So I think that's what I'm going to do with these scenes. Now let's move to the last two images. In the last two images, perhaps we don't use any scene look, but I think we can just work based on this particular universal look that we create with Magic Bullet looks before, right? So before Magic Bullet looks, and with Magic Bullet looks, we have more diffusions. We have richer and denser color because of the film emulations, right? I think we're good with that. Well, let's go to the exposure. And I think let's use this reference image, this one, right? Let me close my gallery. Yeah, let's use this as a reference image, right? Let's make it work. Okay, in the exposure, I'll just reduce the exposure to minus 0.5 or maybe minus 1. The whole stop down. It's not even there yet. 2 stops down. Now we're talking. Okay. And in the contrast, because we are living in the same color space, we have the same midpoint, we have same pivot point. So add contrast a little bit, something like this. More contrast. So let me disable this a little bit without contrast, and that is with contrast. A little bit too much contrast in my opinion. Just reduce it slightly. And we can still deepen the black later on with the HDR if we want to. And as you can see here, the highlight is really bright, and we can do that. Same technique like before. Let's see. Is it fall in the specular category? Yes, it is. And we can just bring it up. All right. +2. Maybe +3. Yes. Oh, wow. Look at that. As we increase the highlight, you can really see that the diffusions tools in look that's really reacting to that, right? Like this is like without looks, you can really see that there's no soft diffusions happening. And with looks and without the HDR and width, look at that. It's amazing. And now we can just balance it a little bit, and I think it screams cyan in the reference image, and we can do that just by reducing our red and push blue a little bit more, push back red a little bit more. So this is before, this is the reference image, and that is our image. And as before, we can target the using hue versus hue. We can just target the blue and make it more cyan. Something like this. And perhaps using the RGB mixer, we can try, hold on, something like that. Reduce the green in the red output slightly. Before, after. So we have a little bit more cyany highlights, you see, right? Same to that one. And probably we can still hue rotate it more. There you go. That's it. And yeah, that's literally it. And now I can either shape my image further, or I can just like apply the grade here. And it seems like the exposure adjustment is a little bit too harsh, or maybe the contrast. No, the exposure is a little bit too much. Let's just use like -1, something like this. What about the HDR? I think it's a little bit too bright. Let's go to the specular. Just put it 2. There you go. We save a little bit more information on the highlight. Or maybe just put it into 1.5. 1. Something like that. Keep playing. There you go. So yeah, I think that's it. That's how I'm going to approach the grade to make it closer to our reference image. And in this case, there's two. So this is our reference image, and that's our image. So if we select together all of it and do the full screen, all right, I think you can really see that in the CG render, it's a little bit too crushed. We can still lift the exposure a little bit up, right? So we can literally go to this one. And here probably -70. And here the exposure is just -1 point. Sorry, -1.5. Something like that. So that's like the process that you can still go on and tweak it if you want to. So that's literally what I'm gonna do to make this work with this one, right? Just tweaking the exposure and the contrast. Okay. So next one is that I will apply some like some distortions to the image because I want to make the image like less clean than before. And to do that, I will go to the group preset and apply another Magic Bullet Looks instance. And here, this is like literally the technique that was inspired with the last update, because in the last update, every single tool says now have like their own strength tool, and also the master strength slider here in the OFX, it behaves like more accurately than the previous version. So in this case, what I'm going to show you is that I want to apply vignette to the image. So this one, I will go from ACEScct back to ACEScct, and we'll monitor it into Rec 709. But as you can see, I forgot one step, right? We are still in DaVinci White gamut, and we need to round trip by selecting the color space into ACES AP1 in this case, and the gamma into ACEScct. Launch look. And here, what's nice is that what I want to show you, for example, lens distortions. So if I make it like super obvious, oh, why is it locking? Sorry. My computer just like locked by itself. Let me share my screen back again. I hope you guys can still see me. And yeah. So for example, if I type in the distortion to -25, as I reduce the strength slider, you can really see that it's like it's reducing the overall effects, right? So here I already prepare some like presets that I created inside Magic Bullet Looks. And just let me know in the chat if you want this preset for looks. I can share it with you guys. What I have here is like the lens vignette tool, and it's set at 60%. And then I have the edge softness just to reduce the softness at the outer like limit of the this circle. And then I have the lens distortions set to -1.7. It's just very tiny distortions, as you can see that over there. And last but not least, I have chromatic aberrations that was applied on the outer part of the image, and that's without, that's with, and the overall effects is this without the effects, and that's with the effects. And if I just apply that to all my image, it will look just like that. So this is before, after, and this is before and after. So I can just copy this one, go to this scene, and apply the same one, go to this scene, and apply the same one. So that's it. I think that's how I'm going to do the grade if I have to copy the grade or borrow the grade from The Force Awakens. Of course, it's not one-to-one reproductions. Probably Stefan Sonnenfeld, the colorist for this movie, did a lot more sophisticated way in the grade than what I just showed you today. But it's another way that you can borrow the look from a reference image, right? So I think that's it for today, guys. Thank you for staying like over the time, and let me show my screen, and right. So to check the upcoming events in the Maxon that is hosted by Maxon. You can check maxon.net/events to see the upcoming events. And if you want to watch this recording, go to the Maxon training team at YouTube, and you will see that the show will be there shortly, soon after we finish this, right? And I think that's it for today. I hope you learned something along the way. And yeah, if you want to know more, and if you have questions, and if you want to reach out to me, you can just write me at maxoncolor@maxon.net. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for staying until the end, and thank you for lending me like this 2 hours. And I hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. And with that being said, thank you very much. Take care. And until next 2 weeks, this is Max. Bye-bye. See you.